When I think of 1974, when I think of the Steelers draft, I would ask this question: will there ever be a draft like that one again? The answer will be no. It's one of those streaks that I think it happened, it hasn't happened since, and I don't think it'll ever happen again. We're here to celebrate that, but I think of some other records that may never be broken. At our table tonight, we had a good conversation about Byron Nelson winning 11 straight PGA Tour events. That'll probably never happen. Pete Rose, 4,276 hits. That'll probably never happen. Cal Ripken playing over 3,000 straight games in baseball. That'll probably never happen. And the Cy Young, you know that name because it's associated with an award for Best Pitcher, and with good reason, because he had 734 complete games. That will never happen. But will never happen again is 5 Hall of Famers from one draft class, as we saw here in Pittsburgh in 1974, and that's what we're here to celebrate here tonight. We have a big program for you. We want to start by bringing up the president of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He and his wife, Greta, have done a great job bringing this all together as they do, and really cherishing the traditions and history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Please welcome Art Rooney II.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Bob. Thanks to all of you for being here tonight to help us celebrate such a great occasion. Thanks to all of our players and their families for being with us. It's amazing that 50 years we're still celebrating. And I remember the first time we brought this group together, I think it was the 25th anniversary, so 25 years ago, we brought this group together for a reunion. And it was just amazing, the magic in the room, just bringing this group back together. Just, great players, but just great people on top of it. Last week, as you know, we played the Raiders and beat the Raiders. And I had a little flashback to the AFC Championship game after the 1974 season. And of course, we beat the Raiders to go to our first Super Bowl. And when we came out to the bus, Ernie Holmes was sitting in the front seat with a bottle of Cavassier, and everybody who got on the bus had to take a shot of Cavassier. So we had some great times, and we're going to have a great celebration tonight and this weekend. So thank you all again for being here, and let's have a great time, and congratulations to our great Steelers.
So please help me in welcoming our first group of guys to the stage: Randy Grossman, Donnie Shell, John Stallworth, and Lynn Swan. Come on down, gentlemen.
Hey, Joe, knock it off. Well, before Bob gets started, I want you all to know that Joe Green is sitting at this table giving us a hard time already. And that's just like it was in 1974. You have not changed. Yeah. You can't catch me now, Joe.
He made a claim that one day he could catch you.
Oh, one day he did.
He did catch you?
One day he did. He caught me, squeezed me, all the air went out. He dumped me in the shopping cart, taped me up, rolled me in the Chuck Knowles office, and laughed and left me there.
Well, Joe, you're going to get your chance up here, so you have time for a rebuttal when you do. But I want to start, gentlemen, with this 1974 offseason. The Steelers had come off that tremendous 72 season, and then the foundation was being built here. You can tell that. And then all of a sudden comes this draft class of 1974. It's amazing to me to think that 14 rookies made this roster. You think about sports today, and there's no way that happens, but this was as good a class as you're ever going to see, not just with the 5 Hall of Famers, but with so many others who contributed. So at the time, and any one of you could start, what did it mean to be in a position to be drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, an up-and-coming team in the NFL?
Only two guys can talk about getting
That's
drafted.
correct. We can answer that question. I was a Raider fan. I don't know why.
Oh, wow.
I was the biggest Raider fan, and I got my first check from Pittsburgh, and I became a Steeler fan really quick. But it was, we came in, it was a draft year, strike year. None of the veterans are there. It's our training camp. The big question in a lot of our minds is how will we fare against the veterans when they got into training camp. And we were having our way, and we were winning football games, and we went tour days for 5 weeks. And we were rookies, and we didn't know any better that you weren't supposed to go 2 days for 5 weeks. And so I'm having a good preseason. Lionel Taylor comes to me, and he tells me that, John, you're not going to be able to do that when Mel gets here. And I was full of myself, and I said to Lionel, I thought to Lionel, I didn't say it, I thought to Lionel, I'm going to be able to do anything I want to do when Mel gets here. So we play in New Orleans that year, and Mel comes to the game, and I'm standing there, and I see Mel from a distance, but later on, Mel's standing close to me. Shoulder pads, helmet, I'm as big as I can get. Mel's standing next to me, and I look up at Mel Blunt. And I thought to myself, well, maybe Lionel was right.
That was a season of the strike, so you guys were in there, a lot of guys weren't. So what was it like, with people who crossed the line to play and others who did not? And eventually they did come back, but what was it like at the beginning of that whole situation? Go ahead, Lynn, you can answer that one.
Well, I think, we felt it was our camp and that we got all the reps. And so we were comfortable running the offense and playing in the defense. And it gave so many of us a chance to get those reps and be comfortable in that situation. But when the veterans came in, things were a little faster, a little quicker. You made adjustments. But in our mind, we had gained the confidence I think it was necessary to play at that level. And so we did. And then we left the decisions as to who would play and when would play to the coaches. And at the end of the day, we played.
Randy and I were glad that the veterans didn't come to training camp because we were undrafted free agents.
I'm glad they were feeding me.
By the way, I think Donnie's one of the best stories out there, undrafted to Hall of Fame status. You don't see that every day in football today. So congratulations on that success. That's not an easy thing to do, especially on that team loaded with that many tremendous players like that. But, all of a sudden things are changing. Veterans are coming in. You guys got to, and I suppose that was the backdrop of Joe Gilliam getting the job because he was doing his thing where Terry Bradshaw wasn't there.
Well, it was huge, Joe coming in, because he had Lynn to throw to, he had John to throw to, he had Reggie to throw to. Obviously, he had me to throw to. And that was Joe's thing. He wanted to throw the ball. He did not want to hand the ball off. He wanted to throw the ball. It was contrary to the Steeler mentality at that point in time. It was still, and the NFL still very much was a running mentality, but that wasn't Joe. I strongly owe me making the team to Joe having been there, because I wasn't going to overpower anybody by my size, that's for sure, but I could catch the ball, and it made a huge difference. Getting the extra reps was a huge difference, and as well. Well, when we got there, you say, what did it feel like? Well, we didn't know. We didn't know. We didn't know what a training camp was supposed to be at the NFL. It was what it was, and it was great for the rookies that year.
It has to help a rookie class that you had 6 preseason games. Today there are 3. Used to be 4, but there were 6 back then, and you guys won all 6. I imagine that's part of this whole story as well, that you got all these opportunities during 6 games that a lot of teams and players in the future never really got.
That's true. I think the extra games kind of helped us out. And me coming from South Carolina State University, I was just glad when they started scrimmaging, because
Saul used to tell me, he said, Donnie, when you first got to the Steelers, you couldn't catch a cold.
You couldn't.
But with their help, Lynn and John's help, I ended up working on that, and I think I set an NFL record for strong safeties.
51 interceptions, right?
That's correct.
For his career. I know that. That's a number that you won't see anytime soon either. Well, let's talk about just the fact that season, the way it started, the way it was going. We talk about quarterback controversies all the time here, and lo and behold, we're at 50 years ago. Joe Gillis was a starting quarterback and then removed for Terry Bradshaw. And here this week, we may have a similar kind of situation. What was that like back then, knowing that Joe he seemed to be a passing guy, yet Chuck and this team wanted to run the football as much as they did?
Well, it was our first training camp, so we didn't know what we didn't know, as we've already said. Joe's a quarterback. In practice, he's throwing the ball. He's accurate. It's right there. He throws it deep, and it's accurate. I mean, we're going like, okay, this is the team. This is what we're going with. And when the veterans came into camp, some things changed, but at the end of the day, into the training camp, into the preseason, and Chuck called the starting lineup, Joe Gilliam was the quarterback. Now, John and I weren't starting at that time. We came in the second quarter and in the fourth quarter of the game. But, for me, from my perspective, the first pass with my number on it was thrown by Joe Gilliam. He called the play. I was supposed to run a hook. I was climbing up the ladder and getting closer to the defensive back, and I kept going deep. And on the highlights, you see it. Joe steps up one time, pulls the ball back. He steps up a second time, pulls the ball back. Third time, he lets it fly. I catch it. And my first NFL catch in the regular season NFL game was a touchdown thrown by Joe Gilliam. There were only two things that mattered to me at that moment. One, I caught the pass, and it was a touchdown. And number two, Joe Gilliam was my quarterback, and that was the end of that. And we moved forward from there.
As a receiver, though, you buddy up to the starting quarterback. Whoever that is, you buddy up to them. And since we had Joe and we had Terry Bradshaw and Terry Hanratty, so from week to week we were butting up to different guys, and so you learn how to do that. And so it was difficult. That made it difficult for our receivers to find the right guy to buddy up to.
It's all part of that huddle stuff we've heard so much about. Donnie, what about Chuck Noll's message to you guys? You went 6-0 in that preseason, if I recall, right? So you didn't lose. Had to set a good standard. You guys could both talk about. What was his expectation of your team at that point?
I think he thought we had a great team, but then Chuck is the type of coach you had to prove it to him, week in and week out, and I think we did that.
I think we, over the course of the season, and I think Rocky said it in the film, we kind of developed what our identity was. I think Chuck probably knew that we had a great defense, and it's shown itself even before we got there. But we were still trying to find out who we were as an offense. So I think Chuck probably is a question in his mind what we were. Terry hadn't shown him. Terry Bradshaw had not shown himself as the starter yet. Joe's the starter, and we're going back and forth with those guys. So as an offense, we were still trying to figure out who we were. And it took us, well into the season trying to get there. I think the message, even not unsaid, was patience, and we'll figure this thing out.
But the defense helped the offense out till they came around. So that's what teamwork's about.
Defense always does that, right? Defense sets the standard, and the offense responds to it. Yeah, well, I know that set the stage for what was a great regular season. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. How about a nice hand for our first group of panelists here, talking about getting ready for what was a regular season, one to remember. All right, so next up, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the regular season. And again, it was very interesting how it developed, 10-3-1 record, and they ended up getting on a roll at the right time of the year. That's what it's all about, when you play your best football, and they were. So let's welcome our next group to the stage to discuss the regular season of 1974. Rocky Blyer, John Kolb, J.T. Thomas, and Joe Green. Yes, Joe, it's your time for the microphone. First word that Donnie Shell says to JT is, keep it clean, JT, keep it clean. You will do that, right?
This is a gala, so you don't have to keep galas clean. But since it's a gala, I'm going to start off first without the script. I don't need a question. I got all the answers. You know, as you all have noticed, well, everything that you've seen and heard today is truth. There's no doubt about it. It's great truth. But as you also notice, they have a tendency to leave truth out. They didn't introduce my ass, you know. No, that's okay.
I'll take responsibility for that,
no,
but
I'm not mad. So
yes, you are. I can tell it right now.
I don't get mad. When I'm mad, I start hitting people.
Don't hit me.
Well, you ain't,
No,
I ain't mad
no,
yet.
I'm on blood thinners. I don't need any
yet.
bruises I can't explain.
I'm not mad yet. But let me tell you a truth that you don't know. And this has been great. Super Bowl IX. That game was won, not on the field, in the tunnel. It was in the tunnel before the game it was won. And you never heard this. I've been knowing this for years, and most guys have too, haven't thought about it. But I'm going to tell you that game was won before kickoff. And here's the scenario. In pre-warm-up, it was raining, drizzling.
Who told you that, JT?
What? Hey, Joe, I cannot run you still. So you just got a bad memory or CTE or whatever. But
The chubby kid knows the truth.
no. Wait a minute.
Go ahead, JT.
Let me tell the story. It had been raining, before in pre-warm-up, and so basically, when it came for an introduction, we in the tunnel. We standing there on one side, and Minnesota Vikings on the other side, and we were scared as crap. We had a 12th member in our lineup. It was fear. So we're standing in this tunnel, and the Minnesota Vikings, they had beards, they looked bigger. You have to understand, these were our high school and college heroes. So it was so quiet in that tunnel, you could hear a cockroach pissing. So we noticed Glenn Edwards, we had the Vikings about 20 feet across, and we were standing straight like soldiers who wouldn't look at them. And they looked bigger, taller, and everything. Glenn Edwards was standing in the back between both lines, moving back and forth. And we knew Naughty Pine was pissed about something, but we didn't know what he was pissed about.
Naughty Pine is Glenn Edwards.
That's Glenn Edwards, I'm sorry. And Glenn had a teammate for the Vikings that refused to speak to him during warm-up. And Glenn was mad as hell. Now, the rest of us, we were scared. We were just there like soldiers, statues. And Glenn bellowed out a question. And this is what he said. He said, "Do y'all know what?" And we all looked back at Glenn. And Glenn answered the question. Glenn said, "We're gonna kick y'all MFA." At that point in time, Bonehead here breaks rank, chewing gum, hanging out the side of his mouth. He goes over, and he's looking at each Viking as if he's a military inspector, looking at him in the face. Okay, now, that's one incident. Dwight White just came out the hospital. Dwight White was our Richard Pryor. Okay, funny guy, joke. He started asking guys, "Is your mama watching? Is your mama watching? Because her baby ass gonna get spanked tonight." Ernie Holmes, now Ernie is a character on his own world, and Ernie, whole thing about football is hurting people. So Ernie Holmes, he is reciting to them, "I'm gonna break a leg, I'm gonna break an arm," okay, and all this thing. And Lambert is sitting there like growling. Now, it's typical to see blood dripping out his mouth about the second quarter, but not in the tunnel. He's bleeding out the mouth. And so at that point in time, the game was over. the game was over, and because if Glenn Edward hadn't broke that emotional thing, because we were scared, and Glenn broke, and we knew then the game was over. So the game was won. So you guys didn't know that. So Naughty Pine broke the tension because we were scared. I mean, we was shaking. I mean, it was quiet in that tone, and Pine broke the monotonous, and Green broke out. That's all he needed. Don't take much to get him going, you know. We know that, you know. We don't take much to get him going. I mean, he tried to jump on me in Denver one day and beat me. But anyway, that's the truth you guys don't know, but that game was won in the tunnel before kickoff.
There you go.
Naughty
Story
Pine.
that you won't hear anywhere else.
Now y'all get back to y'all little script.
But when play started, it was a case, John, I want to bring you in on this because this was a run-heavy game. And today you look at the statistics of quarterbacks, you'll see 60 throws, 52, 40. That day, not many passes. There were 51 rushes between Rocky and Franco. So, John, a lot of the attention in the regular season was about the run game and how it developed. Talk about what it meant for your offensive line to block for those guys.
Well, you have to understand, we played 3 games a week and had a practice on Sunday.
I like that.
So Dwight White's daughter and wife are here. They are so special to me. But you got to know, I had a game on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday against your daddy. And that's true, right? And so if you couldn't get ready for, right, Dave? So, I mean, with 3 games a week and a practice on Sunday, we got pretty. I mean, we're going to play Cleveland. You know, there's no doubt about the outcome of that game. So, but the outcome of one-on-one pass protection, Gordon's here. He'll tell you the same thing. It was, because I give up a sack, or Gordon gives up a sack, or Dave Rivers, we give up a sack. That doesn't go away. You got to play 3 more games before you forget that. Lynn, you can drop a pass and then catch a touchdown the next play, and nobody remembers the pass you dropped. But in 60 plays in a game, 30 of them are passes, and you give up a sack. Then the guy is dancing, right? He's dancing around, and you know on TV they're running it back and showing you getting your ass handed to you, and you know that's happened because they break for a commercial after you give up a sack so they can show the guy sacking. And then Brad, when Brad got sacked, did you ever catch a perch and you throw it on the ground and it's flopping around there? So giving up a sack, am I right, Dave? Huh? That is not, and you had nightmares about if you gave up a sack. So y'all don't understand the gravity of giving up a sack.
So Rocky, you need to follow that. You've been silent here. This offensive line of yours was pretty good that season as it continued to roll along. How important was it? And talk about your relationship with Franco Harris in the backfield.
The success we had was because of our offensive line, in all honesty. I mean, unlike today, and I'm saying that because we had a running game, we had a passing game. But if you think about the way we played back then and the rules at that time, is that our offensive line was technically strong coming off the ball. Now, when you have guys on that offensive line, John is really the epitome and started it. When you have a offensive tackle that can bench press 560 pounds coming off the ball, that defensive end or defensive tackle knows he's been hit. Okay, I mean it's not a body block; it is a punch block, and I at times would hear that opposing defensive end go as our offensive line would hit them coming off the ball, technique-wise. And so because of that, that helped not only our running game, but also our passing game, very much so. And I think really the essence of building to 1974, I mean, started, I was thinking about this story in 1969 when Chuck first introduced himself to his brand new team. And he had said this. He said, "Gentlemen, over the last 5 months that I've been your head coach, I've watched every film of every practice of every game that you've played in over the last 3 years. And I can tell you why you've been losing. Because you're just not any good. You have no discipline, you have no technique, and by the time this training camp is over with, most of you probably will not be here. Not that you're not good people. Problem is you just not made a commitment to get any better. And if you're not going to get better, then I'm going to go find some people who will." And you've met those people from the draft of 69 to 70 to 71 to 72 and so on. And if you look at that progress, even though he went 1-13 that first season, went 5-9 the next, and 6-8, and then by 1972 things fell into place. Because of what? Because of the talent, because of the technique, because of the discipline of bringing these guys together. Now, we are individuals. You have to understand that. We all have our fears and our weaknesses, and the unknown, we didn't know what was going to develop in that team or how it's going to be as great as it turned out to be over the years, but there was a foundation that was set and an expectation that was placed on each and every player's shoulders. This is how you're going to play, or this is what I expect of you to play. And if you're not, then we'll find some people who will. And over the years, as you just saw that, and look at people that are here tonight, those who are in the Hall of Fame, those who are in the Hall of Honor, those who have been recognized and stayed together through that period of time. We've got, I think, 28 players that now have the opportunity to wear those 4 Super Bowl rings. That does not exist in today's game anymore. You move, and so that's part of the philosophy. And every year was an unknown. We didn't know what we're going to do that year. We just hope you got better. You hope you can make the team. You hope you didn't get cut. That was the internal driving force that made you hopefully play better. And we start to play better as a team and individuals. Also based on the fact of the assistant coaches that we had. If you look at those teams back then, you have to understand there was a defensive back coach, a linebacker coach, a defensive line coach, an offensive line coach, a running back coach, a receivers coach, and Chuck. That was the coaching staff. And you better play up to their expectation, because they will otherwise cut you. So anyway, so that was the basis of the success, I really believe, of that period of time.
The offense was great, there's no doubt, but the Steeler defense, starting back in the early 70s, these two gentlemen, I'm gonna bring JT, I know you're gonna like this. Joe was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Because of the pressure, you were afforded an opportunity to make interceptions, and many people don't realize that you led the team with 5. I think that was your career best at that. Joe had nothing to do with it. What are you talking about? Yeah, but the pressure.
No.
No.
That's the lie that LC used to say too. No.
Wait a minute.
I know this is not a truthful environment, but we're going to have to tell the truth tonight. You have to look at this.
Bob, I'm going to leave that alone.
Are you sure?
I'm going to leave it alone.
They got sacks because we held the coverage. Hold.
Twisting it around a little bit.
Wait a minute. Now, here's the deal. Now, okay, my homeboy here, Mel Blunt. Now, I'm telling you something. Love this boy to death. Probably the best cornerback ever, as pure cornerback.
No doubt.
I mean, I'm gonna tell you something about y'all don't know. Him and Bud Carson, the coordinator of the defense that still, they got into it all the time. And Mel, I used to wonder why they threw at Mel all the time and throw at me. They didn't throw at me. See, back in the day, they didn't have what the title they called shut down or lockdown corner. That wasn't terminology. Chuck Knowles called it easy day at the office for some damn reason. But anyway, this guy here, just an amazing athlete, and we'd be watching film, and Bud Carson say, Mel, you beat. Well, it looked beat at the moment, but in the route, Mel closed the gap. He had an 8-foot stride, and in one step, he makes it up. Now, Mel claimed that he set it up that way. Bud say, no, Mel, you beat, but he couldn't argue with Mel because Mel got there, and Donnie can attest, because he looked beat. If I'm a quarterback, I'm throwing at Mel Blunt because he's beat. And Bud came back to me and said, you know what? He said, T, I know that son of a bitch was beat, but I can't prove it because he always make it up. But in terms of the sacks they got, we played bump and run, a lot of bump and run. And the reason they got sacks, now, they weren't in that great a shape, you know. Don't fool you. They weren't in that great a shape. You got Mel Blunt, okay, 4'4". Donnie Shell, 4'4". Glenn Edwards, 4'4". Mike, where you at? Mike was a 4'5".
There's a lie in there.
Well, wait a minute. Mike 4'5". Now, hold it. That wasn't our police speed, you know. That wasn't our police speed. So these guys got sacks because the fact that we hold, it wasn't the other way around that they so quick they got the quarterback, we didn't have to cover. Yeah, right. Yeah. I used to be slow too, Joe, but don't worry about it. But that's the deal.
Joe, you need to comment on that.
Well,
Come on, Greg.
I'm going to just tell you my side of the story.
Yeah, okay.
When we landed in New Orleans, and our first meeting there, you all heard it, Chuck said, enjoy yourselves. Don't let the Super Bowl just take away your joy.
Amen.
Don't let the game take away your joy.
We partied too, didn't we?
Enjoy. You have no curfew. But you know that during the at home, you're at home by 11, but there are no restrictions, no curfew. But if you get caught, there's a fine. So, didn't get caught. Now, we were down in the quarter at our hotel. The Vikings were outside at the airport where all they could deal with was the planes. And we had our good friend Mel Blunt there living in Vidalia. He had this nice outfit of a place. He had a canal going by his house in the back. A big boat, sleeps about 8. Me and a couple other guys, Toby Pine was there. He even let Toby drive the vehicle. Had a good time. I got a picture of you doing that. But we were enjoying ourselves. And the sidebar on that is that Mel knew New Orleans. We went to all of the great restaurants. I probably gained 15 pounds down there eating and doing other stuff. What's the name of the place? The Beignets. Is that right? Yes. We went there a couple of times. So we were enjoying New Orleans, just like Chuck said. Then come game day, he skipped a few points. But Glenn Edwards had gone to school with this guy. He was right about that. And we were lined up just opposite of the Minnesota Vikings. And Glenn walked up to the guy and looked up, and he had Glenn probably 6 inches. And Glenn tried to speak to him, and he looked away. How you doing, buddy? And he looked away and just disrespected him. After about 3 times, Glenn said, buckle up, big fella. That's when I came out of the end zone with my hands up. We're number 1. And that's right. It was
In the
it was
tunnel.
won
In the tunnel.
in the huddle. 'Cause
In that tunnel, yeah.
we got
yeah.
the energy then. We weren't afraid of them.
No. But we're
I mean,
intimidated.
We were there
though.
to beat. We were there to beat them.
Yeah, but we were scared in that tunnel. Come on.
Oh no.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, like I said, it was so quiet. You hear cockroach pissing in there. They wasn't saying nothing. I was scared.
No. They was gonna be roast turkey that day.
Well, they were.
No way. But anyway, that's what happened there. And Toby can attest to that. That's what happened. Correct?
Oh yeah.
There you go.
There it is. All the great stories about a great regular season. Gentlemen, thank you. Joe, you stay up here for a second. John, Cole, Rocky, JT, thank you very much. I love those stories. So we have one more group that we're going to bring up here, and we're going to add to Joe. We're going to talk about the postseason. What was your great postseason? 2 big wins, followed by that trip to Tulane Stadium. So please welcome to the stage, along with Joe, Larry Brown, and Mel Blunt. Ladies and gentlemen, come on down. So gentlemen, let's talk about postseason. You had Buffalo first, and while that was going on, there was another game going on, Miami and Oakland. And at the time, people were talking about it. I think we heard that in the video. Chuck was talking about what was going on, that the best team was in this locker room. But that game was billed by many as Super Bowl 8.5. Like whoever would win that game would win a Super Bowl. How much motivation was taken from that, the fact that that was received as the game to watch and that this other one didn't really matter?
You know, leading up to that game, this was about Elsie, Dwight, and Ernie. And it had nothing to do with the Raiders, other than one player, Upshaw. And Elsie told number 63, Ernie Holmes, Upshaw gonna beat your butt, like he always does. And Dwight said, yeah, you tell him, Ernie, you tell him. And LC said again, the same thing. Second day of practice, Eugene Upshaw gonna kick your rear end. And Dwight kept cheering him on. Come game day, we kick off to the Raiders. They get the ball on the 30, minus 30 theirs. And the ball is there, and Ernie steps across the football and said, Upshaw. And Upshaw didn't do anything, and he said, Eugene Upshaw. And Upshaw turned around, and Ernie said, I'm gonna kick your... Ernie hadn't said a word all week about that. And Mike, what did you say? Oh, don't say that. What'd you say, Ernie? No, please don't do that. And LC said, gee, 4 out, Fats, 4 out. The game was on. I think they ran the ball 27 times for 21 yards. We've seen that picture. Well, they had nothing. And along with us shutting those guys down for 21 yards rushing, Rocky had 101 yards, but something happened, he lost 2. And he ended up with 99, and Franco got 110. So we had 200 yards rushing on those guys. And this is the team that beat us 17-0, second game of the season in Pittsburgh. But we wanted them. They didn't know how bad we wanted them. It was vengeance, for sure.
And that's what led to where they ended up going, which was the Super Bowl. And I want to get your guys' memories of that. Larry, you had a big Super Bowl with a big touchdown reception in that game. And first of all, tell us about the fact that this offense was predicated on running, and yet in the second half you needed to come up with a big pass play, and that was it.
You're right about that. I mean, I think that game, Franco just had a monster day. He was just really coming into his own. You know, he was really a force that everybody had to game plan for. In that particular game, he and Rocky were just, you know, having a really productive day. So the play that I caught the touchdown on, it was a fake to Franco, and Bradshaw rolled around, and I just found an open spot in the end zone, and you know, he was able to find me to get that touchdown. But it was all set up by the ferocious running game that was going on.
Sound like a cannon going on.
Yeah, 51 rushes in that game. They ran the ball. What's that?
Boom.
Jerry Moon Mullins.
Oh, Jerry, oh, yes.
Counter 15 special.
What was the name of it?
Round the left
Counter
end.
15 special?
Then he made a great block on the linebacker, and Franco went in for a touchdown. That was a great block by Mullins.
It was. It's all about 11 guys at that point, right? Contributing at the same time.
Absolutely. And, you know, the team was just a bunch of stars, and you know who they are. You hear their names all the time. But it was a complete team. It was a complete team. There were people with names that you don't hear of or hear very often who played key roles in those games. The stars weren't always healthy for some of those games. So, you know, I was just talking to Ed Bradley, who played a key role in that game.
Yes, he did.
He played a very key role in that game. So I'd just like to acknowledge that those teams, though they had tremendous stars, were just made up of just.
Our starting linebacker went out in the first half, and he came in, and I never knew that our first guy had gone. Played that good. I didn't look back because I was worried about what was in front of me. But he played great.
So I think,
Ed Bradley.
and I think that was just, you know, I think that was the secret to the team. It wasn't really a secret, is that it was a complete team, and so everybody contributed. And you needed that. I mean, you needed those kind of contributions because it's a rough game. And so there are games where you're not 100%. And so it's really nice to look around the room or, you know, look down the line and know that you got, you know, even though it might not be a player you've ever heard of before, the fans, but you know from playing with these guys that they were just tremendous players. And, you know, I feel very fortunate to have come along when I did.
Well, the defense also big time with 3 interceptions in that game. You had one. How many have you had in your career?
2.
Joe, 2, and you had 1 in that stage. That was the biggest stage of all, and you come up with an interception about that. So everybody knows you for you were. Yeah, you always say you're pretty fast. Do you think you could have gone the distance if you had to? Yes.
All right here.
50 years is a long time. 50 years is a long time ago. I saw things that I didn't remember.
That's right. Now let's talk about those picks and also just what it meant for Western Pennsylvania here, all the Steeler fans who've waited and waited and waited all these years to bring home a Super Bowl like that in the start of what was an amazing decade. What did it mean?
Well, I came to Pittsburgh in 1970, and the year after Joe Green, and they were 1-13. And so, you know, I got a chance to see the process and guys coming and guys going. And, you know, I think Larry Brown said it best. We had so many great players, and a lot of guys went overlooked because, you know, we just had great players at every position. And when I realized we was going to have this event, this celebration of 50 years of our first Super Bowl, the first thing I started doing was reflecting on the guys who were a part of it and the guys who are not with us anymore. So I just think that we all should just, you know, recognize so many great men and women who were part of that 50th, this celebration, but they're no longer with us. But the play that I made, the interception that I made, Glenn Edwards actually made the play with the hit. And I saw the ball thrown, and I started running towards the ball, and Glenn made the hit, which if he made that hit today, they would kick him out the league. But he made a big time hit on John Gilliam. The ball pops up, and because I was hustling to the play, you know, I was able to make that intercept. It was a big turnover for us. But I want to go back to this guy, Larry Brown. Larry Brown, in my opinion, was, if not the greatest, one of the greatest athletes on that team, because this guy, not only was he Bryce Shaw's first Super Bowl touchdown recipient, but the guy switched from tight end and was a big-time all-pro tackle. And so kudos to you, Larry, because it was those kind of players that
You don't see that.
yeah, you don't see that, and you know, without a whole lot of fan, he did it without complaining and was the best at it. So I remember that a reporter had asked Chuck Noll one time, "How do you keep winning like this?" And he didn't say good athletes; he said with good people, and that's what make this so special. Is we have so many great people, so many great athletes, and to this day, there's a bond between all of us that I don't care if we don't see each other for 10 years. You know, when we see each other, it's like we never missed a beat, and that's special.
That was the 1974 Steelers. One thing to wrap this up, gentlemen. This whole thing ended in the locker room, and you guys decided to present the Lombardi Trophy to the Chief, and that was an emotional time in there. Tell us about that, what it meant to him, to you guys. Game balls could have been given to a lot of people, and instead it goes to the Chief, the man who came up with the cash to make this franchise possible in the first place. Tell us about it.
Well, it was Andy. Andy just reacted as a voice for everybody in the locker room. It was just a natural thing to do. They said that we were down there playing for the Chief, and we were. The other thing was that we're playing for a Super Bowl ring, and the Chief superseded playing for the ring, playing for the money. It was the Chief, and I think that was the impotence that caused us to forge all of our energy towards winning the game and representing the Chief and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, I think the other thing too is that the Chief was a father figure, and he would come through that locker room, and he didn't care if you were a star or if you were a special teams guy or if you was just on the team. He treated everybody the same, and whether you smoked a cigar or not, he always had a cigar to offer you. And he was the kind of guy, though, that you couldn't help but like and respect, and you didn't want to disappoint him. It was kind of like a kid. You didn't want to disappoint your parents. And to me, that's what I remember about the Chief.
Yeah, he liked teasing guys like Lynn that comes from the sunshiny state of California. He said, "It's going to be cold today." You going to be all right? Anybody from the warm weather, he was going to come up to you and say, "Hello, are you ready for this?"
Well, one final word.
And he was ever present. I mean, he was there. I never remember talking about football with him. No. That was never part of the conversation I've ever had with him. But he was just so common to see him in the locker room. Even during practices, you know, he'd be on the sideline going up and down and, you know, looking and not making any football comments or anything like that. And I was in the hospital. My wife reminded me I was in the hospital one time, and she said, you know, I was out of it, but she was there. And she said he came in with what she said looked like a group of gangsters. But she meant, you know, he was well protected with his friends who came in. But that's just the kind of person he was. You know, and I've heard stories. JT tells a story, just a great story about Mr. Rooney. And so I think he touched everybody.
Yes,
you know, and you never thought about football with him. You just, you know, he was just, as Mel said, a father figure.
Well, there's no question, a perfect ending to what was an unbelievable season. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. How about a nice hand, ladies and gentlemen, for Mel Blount, Joe Green, Larry Brown, and all the people who made 1974 possible.